Jane is here. Anne is here. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
And we will wait for a few minutes and see who else wins it. I'm expecting. I'm glad you found your way in because Anne had Gwendolyn. Gwen, do you want to be Gwen or Gwendolyn?
I'm Gwendolyn, but if it's a mouthful,
No,
Gwen.
Not at all. No, absolutely not. Gwendolyn is completely fine. I discovered that the link on the website was people are finding their way in, so that's good.
Do we mute ourselves, Richard?
Sorry?
Do we mute ourselves?
It's probably good to do that. Well, it's fine at the moment while we're chatting, but once we're underway, sometimes if someone's in a noisy area without realizing it, I will mute them.
Yeah.
But generally it's fine.
I just want to say good morning and hello from Canada.
Oh
wow.
Thrilled to
So you're also very early in the morning.
Yes, it's 8 o'clock.
Okay, that's reasonably civilized. Gwendolyn's from the West Coast, so she's 5 o'clock in the morning.
Ooh.
Looking remarkably bright on it.
And I'm from London, but I have an American accent. I don't
Okay.
hear me, so I'm on UK time.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
You know, Richard, I rather like these Zoom First Fridays because we're seeing people from around the world.
Yes.
You know, I really think I feel a bit more engaged actually in it. I'm just saying I'm enjoying them.
Good, excellent. Well, a lot of people have said that, particularly people who couldn't just pop in from California or Canada or wherever.
Or London.
Or London, even. Yeah, absolutely. I'm from London. So even though some other locals have mourned the fact that we're not sharing food and meeting physically, I think plenty are also enjoying the kind of much broader perspective that Zoom can give us. So still got people coming in, so I'm just busy looking after the waiting room here as more people come in.
I should know this, but who else? Are the other speakers here?
Both Gwendolyn and Anne are here. So
Okay.
There's Christiana. We have a mystery Jen who's appeared but has not visible yet. Did anyone else have any trouble getting in? Because I had got the information wrong on the web page. Hopefully it was right on the Facebook page. I'm just curious to know where you find the information from when you're coming in to the meetings.
From the website.
The website.
Yeah, and it was correct.
Okay.
That website.
Okay.
It seemed to work for me.
Well, I did fix it at the last minute. Jen, are you there? No. Okay, so I have a screen that says Jen, but I can neither see nor hear. Okay, well, obviously not. Having some trouble connecting, I would say. Judy, welcome. Where are you joining us from?
Thank you. I'm in Plymouth.
Okay.
Down the road.
That counts as local. Definitely that counts as local. Yeah.
Yes.
Have you ever been to a real First Friday?
I have. This is the first one that I'm doing on Zoom.
Okay. We were just talking about the relative merits and demerits of being online. But
Yes, I
Christina
think
has now disappeared. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say that it's great not to have to travel in a way, but obviously it's not so far for me. but it does mean that you can have people from all around the world, as you were saying just now, participating in the discussions, which is fabulous.
Yeah.
I do think it's wonderful when you can see an artwork close up, though.
Well, yes, obviously.
In reality, and to touch or feel or smell or hear it, but as it was intended.
Absolutely. Looking at art, I mean, I think it's one of the big questions I think that's coming out of this is how on earth do you teach art on the internet when you can't see the work properly, you can't feel the work, you can't touch the work? You know, I think it's I think some art schools have kind of said, oh, it's fine, we'll just keep teaching, but others are acknowledging the fact that you can't. And actually, Andrew, what's his name, from Plymouth, principal at Plymouth Art College, has been one of the most outspoken in saying, actually, we can't teach art this way. If you want to teach people how to be artists, you need to be in the room with them.
Hello.
Hello.
We've still got a few people coming in, so I'm just continuing to whittle away here.
When someone's presenting their work, do you screen share? I mean,
yes, absolutely. I think screen sharing is fine. I keep an eye on things, and if anything weird appears to be happening, I will immediately shut things down. But so far, we haven't had any problems on Zoom. So yeah, so please do. I shall just double check that screen sharing is set up. So bear with me a second while I do that. Okay, you should be. Anna, are you ready to go? Would you like to just test it and see if you can share your screen?
sure, I can test it. It says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Okay, bear with me.
Yeah.
I will. Here we go. Hang on. Try it again.
Works that time.
Excellent. Okay, we've got it. That's great.
Richard, is it all right to eat our lunch as we're watching and listening?
Of course it is. It's First Friday, so it's all about lunch. Nothing else.
Excellent.
Okay, and do you want to just let that go again?
Sure. Well, do I just, I'm not sure how to do that. Maybe you have to let it go at your end?
No, I think you do actually.
Oh, okay.
I can stop it.
I'm just trying to see how here. Oh, wait. Sorry. Oh, stop share.
There we go. Well done. Okay, great. Okay, I think we will start. So welcome everybody. We've got a couple of people lurking. We've had Christiana, who's tried to join us and says she's having trouble, so she'll be back soon. So I want to welcome everybody and say that we've got 3 presenters today. So we've got Gwendolyn, who's joining us from California, and we have Anne, who's joining us from London, and Jane, who is just down the road, joining us from the edge of Dartmoor. So welcome, and I think we should get going. So who would like to go? Gwendolyn, as you have had a little practice with your screen sharing, do you want to kick off?
It wasn't, oh, go ahead.
Do you want to kick off? Sorry, did I said, Anne, would you like to kick off?
I can kick off.
Okay, great. I'm just going to start a timer, and if you are, I'll sort of after about 5-10 minutes or so, I'll just give you a little nudge if you're still going.
The screen share again. One second. Trying to screen share, but there.
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay. Hi. So I'm Anne Krinsky. I'm new to your group and look forward to getting to know you. I am in London. My work spans analog and digital media, and I come from a printmaking background, but I also paint, and in the last few years I've done some digital projects. I would say that layering lies at the heart of my practice, and it's also research-based. I'm fascinated by the ways that built and natural structures change over time and by the ephemeral nature of the physical world. A few years ago, I did a big project in London called Tideline Thames, which investigated the river and its architecture between the high and low tide lines. So all of the wonderful architectural structures that get covered up by water every day. And I did that, I did some installations for Totally Thames, which is a big festival that has everything to do with the river in London. In the process of observing the tidal Thames erode wood, stone, and metal, I began to think about rising sea levels induced by climate change and risks to coastal communities and intertidal habitats. And that led to my current research about vulnerable wetlands and climate change. So I've done research in a few locations. In 2018, I did a residency in Southend with metal and did a lot of photography in the industrialized Thames estuary, which has been shaped and scarred by maritime, industrial, and military interventions for centuries, and is still very affected by the shipping and waste industries and maritime, and also the fossil fuel industry. And then I investigated an inland river in Bavaria, which was the River Nab, and it was last summer during the hottest June on record. And as the river levels fell, tree roots were exposed and floating islands formed from algae and duckweed. And the image I'm showing you, I worked with some of the photographs from the River Nab, and I did an installation with two other artists, but my part of it was called the Ephemera Scrolls. And I designed a series of 10 scrolls that hung on the first floor of St. Augustine's Tower, which is a 13th century tower in London. So this image shows 4 of the 10, and each scroll is 2 meters high. Let's see. So recently during lockdown, I've been revisiting my photographic archives of wetland locations and merging photos and scanned drawings to create a new series of digital prints. And the last thing I'll say is that the next project I'm working on involves wetlands on the south coast, and I will be photographing in the Solent and Southampton water and in Portsmouth, Chichester, and Langston harbors. And that will lead to a show that's been rescheduled at the Worthing Museum for early 2022. So that's what I have to say. It's funny to be talking, not seeing you. I guess if I take this down.
Yeah, can you leave it up just a little bit longer?
Sure, absolutely.
Yep. Just so that people can maybe ask you questions, but I'd like to start with a question,
Yes.
which is what are we looking at? So what was your process in kind of capturing this? Right. Is this all from the intertidal zone, or is this?
Well, no, this mostly was, this particular imagery in this was from this inland river Nab in Germany.
Okay.
So it was a river that shrank a lot while I was there. And the other aspect of its imagery had to do with the location of St. Augustine's Tower, which is a clock tower, and there's some images from the surrounding churchyard as well. And as far as my process, It was kind of convoluted. What I ended up doing was projecting my photographs onto painted paper in my studio and then re-photographing them and then taking those images into Photoshop to design the scrolls.
Okay. Jane, you had a question?
Yes.
By the way, I can't see everybody, so if you have a question, either give me a wave on the reactions thing, or just yell. Because Jane, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think they're absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
When you took them into Photoshop, did you enhance the colors?
No, the reason that the colors have a luminosity to them is that I was photographing projected light. So I projected my photographs onto paper and took photos of that projected light, which gave them a very luminous quality. And the photo and the paint that was on the paper sort of merged. So in some cases, the color on the paper enhanced the photographic image.
Very beautiful. And did you do that because you wanted them to have more vibrancy, or you talked about layers? What was the reason for re-photographing?
I had tried this once before. I guess, although I use photography to document things, I'm not a photographer, and I guess I'm interested in a sensibility that has some kind of a tactile mark to it. Mm-hmm. And so by combining the painted mark and the photograph, it gave the photographs an additional element that wasn't just straight photographs.
Mm. And what titles do you use?
Well, the whole piece was called the ephemeral scrolls.
Oh, yeah.
Or the ephemera scrolls, I should say. So, I mean, in that case, the title had to do with, obviously, the notion of the ephemeral and river locations where the rivers are vanishing, the water is vanishing, but also because it was in a clock tower and a churchyard, it was also just about the sort of general ephemerality of life, which is, you know, something that's surrounding us at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else like to ask a question?
I'm intrigued by the lines on these images. Where do they come from?
Well, the lines were on the painted paper. So the grids that are there, well, there's two kinds of lines, actually. The paper that I painted on, before I painted on it, I folded it and then unfolded it. So some of the lines in the paper are from the folds, and some of the lines are painted or drawn lines, and then the photograph is projected on top of that. So that's what you're seeing. That's where the lines come from. The lines are on the paper.
And have you manipulated the color afterwards, Anne?
Not really. I manipulated some of the images that I projected. I had manipulated in the color in the sense that I inverted the colors. So for instance, that sort of funny island-like shape with a spiky form, spiky bits coming out of it, which was a floating island on the river. I inverted the color. It actually was green. And when I inverted it, I had the opposite color. So instead of being yellow-green, it's a blue-violet. So yes, I did manipulate the colors before I projected the images onto the paper.
That's great, because it gives us a wonderfully surreal feel.
Well, I loved the form of that thing, and you know, it's curious, and you don't quite know what it is you're seeing, and it lends itself to various interpretations.
Speaking of form, we have a question, a chat question from Lizzie, which says, "Why scrolls?"
Well, two reasons. First of all, I just love the form of the scroll, and it allows me to, in this case, to work with multiple images and set up relationships between them. But the other reason is that this tower, the first floor of this tower where the installation was, has some historical panels, some metal panels with historical information about the tower. And if you see on the bottom, and you can't really see on the top, there's a wooden rod that goes across the bottom. Well, behind each of those scrolls is a metal panel with historical information, and there are 10 of them in total. And because they so dominated the space, I had to cover them up.
Yeah.
And the simplest thing to do was to make scrolls the same size of the panels, and the structure was there. And the other reason that was a good thing to do was that it's a listed structure, and you're not allowed to put a piece of tape or a nail or anything into the stone walls. But you could attach to this structure that held the panels, because that wasn't part of the original tower.
A wonderfully pragmatic reason, but actually I was going to say the hanging itself, you know, the physical hanging looks brilliant. So it's great that it was actually serendipity.
Well, it was the only way to use that space, because otherwise the panels were so dominant. That's what you would see when you came into it.
Many years ago, I did an exhibition in Stawell in a medieval barn on Dartmoor, and it was an empty space, and right up in the ceiling there were holes in the wall where beams had been at one point, and we were told from the outset that we couldn't touch the structure of the building at all.
Yeah.
But if we wanted to hang things from the holes in near the ceiling, we could do that. It was about 40 feet up.
Yeah.
So,
one of
a very interesting challenge.
Yes, one of the two other artists who we each showed on a separate floor of the tower, and she had a challenge because she was hanging a very large piece from pieces of wood that were intersecting the space, but they were very, very high. And, you know, she had to throw fish line over it and be up on a ladder. And yes, I avoided that challenge.
Any other questions or comments for Jane?
Have you got any ideas of what you will do with this work now?
I wish I did. It's in my storage space. And sadly, I have another dismantled project that's also in my storage space, which had been commissioned for a temporary work for the roof garden at Crossrail Place and Canary Wharf. And I have 8 panels that are over 2 meters high on aluminium, and that have imagery of the River Thames. And I would love to be able to place either of these projects somewhere. But if you have any ideas, let me know.
If you put your email into the chat window so that you can share it, then if anybody wants to get in touch with you about that, they can do so.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I can't see everyone, so just say if you want to say anything else. Okay, great. Well, thank you, Anne. That was
thank you.
Great.
I'm going to stop the share.
Okay.
There. Oops.
Good. Welcome to those who've joined us along the way. Ellie, welcome back.
Hi. I had trouble, sorry. I had problems logging in.
That's okay.
I'm sorry to have missed the first presentation.
Well, as usual, this will be video. This is being recorded, and we will put it up
Brilliant.
on the website afterwards. So
great.
if you missed a bit,
I will put my website as well as the email in the chat room, and then you can look on there to see.
Yeah, please do.
I think I've already followed you on Instagram, because I did have a look at the stuff you put. Thank you, Richard, for putting those things pre-meeting, because I had a look. So I am a little bit familiar, but I would have liked, obviously I can go on to the recording and hear you speak about it. Thank you.
Thanks. Gwendolyn, do you want to come in next?
Hi, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to start with this one, just as an introduction. So I'm new. I was in a May First Friday, which I really enjoyed, and I loved the discussion that was going on about art and change. And so here I am from early morning California.
Is it light there yet?
Where in California are you?
I'm on the Tamales Bay, which is a little unknown bay north of San Francisco.
Okay.
I'm out of the fire zone, but there are fires all around us.
Yeah.
So it's been quite weird, actually. The whole Central Coast is burnt. It's crazy. My work has been, I think it might be interest to this group, and this group is very interesting to me because I've been looking at ideas of humans and nature. And I just wanted to show this piece because it was a kind of a pivotal moment for me in the work, in the kind of work I make. I was finishing a master's in sustainable development at Stellenbosch University. So I actually go between Cape Town and California. And I was very much like in the academic discussion about climate change, resilience, and the Anthropocene. And I was doing the master's trying to fuse arts into sustainable development processes, which proved a bit tricky, but interesting. And there was a day I was walking on the beach and I found this object on the beach. And it was a moment when I kind of really realized on a really visceral body level what is actually happening on the planet. Without being too dramatic, it was quite an important moment. So what it is a found piece of seaweed plastic, and it's not just random. When I compared it, it is in the same structure as a seaweed, particularly a type called Eclonia radiata. So it has, you can see it has the fronds, it has the stem, and it has the holdfast. And I found a few other pieces, but this one was the sort of the most striking. And what I realized was that all this garbage we're dumping and all this stuff we're putting in, nature isn't just sort of an idle force in this change that's going on. Because what it seems to me is that the ocean and the forces of the ocean had actually shaped our waste into a type of seaweed structure. And it was a very interesting realization, because it made me realize how nature is like a very conscious thing and its forces are very active. So I called it Artifacts of the Anthropocene, in that the discussion right then was really about anthropogenic change, and they just had the conference in Cape Town to say, yes, we're definitely in the Anthropocene according to certain of us. And as an artifact, it felt like this was an indication of the new forces at play on the planet, meaning man. And there are a few of them. And I've showed this work, it's been printed quite large, 24 by 30, and it's been in a couple of sort of science art-based discussions. So I just wanted to show you that before I show you the listening project, which Richard had, oh sorry, wrong one. Richard had tagged, and I just have to go there. Yeah. So following on with that, I've made these small videos, and I think they're probably most relevant to what's going on now, because people have stopped and started paying attention, and nature has come back to us. And there's this very interesting dynamic in nature when humans go away, as we've been sort of shown by the COVID thing. And these are just short 30-second videos that I make when I walk. And I've been doing them I started it in 2017 when I was kind of a bit, and I was looking to nature as a place to connect with. And what I realized is that when I paid attention, something shifted in the in my sensory, in how I sensed what I was watching. There was like a heightened sense of awareness. And I started to think that nature was actually kind of paying attention to my attention. And with that idea, that's either a really wild idea to you or a very obvious idea to you. With that idea in mind, I started exploring more and more, just stopping and listening. And I wanted to, they're all on Vimeo right now. I wanted
Are we
to
supposed to be seeing a video? Excuse
yeah, I'm
me.
going to show you one.
Okay.
Just having a little trouble. Here we go.
Yeah, we're still seeing your
Still
PDF.
seeing the prints.
You are, oh, you're not seeing this. That's interesting. That's
No.
probably because it's on a, sorry about that.
Can you close your, close the other, oh, because it's on a,
Okay, hang on. I can close this.
Right.
Oh, I've just closed the window.
yeah,
Sorry about that. Try again. Can you
right,
see?
okay,
Now
yes,
you got
I
it.
can see it now.
And can you see this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so there's a few of them. I'm just going to play that one. Let me get out of the screen.
I have a feeling we're not seeing the video as we should, because it's a bit jerky. But I
And was
think it's
there
just,
sound on that video or not?
no, we couldn't hear any sound.
Yeah, I'm going to put the link in the chat, and
yeah,
if you
Okay.
could go have a look at it. Yeah, there's a few of them, and you can look at them on the screen. The quality of them is, I think, maybe affected by the streaming of the.
yes, I think it is.
Do they have a sound
They
background?
do have a sound, yeah. They do have a sound, and so I'm just filming them with my iPhone, and so they're not technically like they're an iPhone quality, which is sometimes really good, and sometimes the sound isn't so strong, perhaps. But they're based. I guess they're really meant for earphone listening, because then you're kind of with the sound. It's much closer. They're not meant to be perfect. They're meant to be about, and sometimes they're a little shaky, and I'm playing with that because I want to put myself into the picture. I'm not trying to make something that's sort of a perfect objectification of nature. I just want to capture that moment where I'm standing and listening. And I'm not sure, I'm still seeing how that plays out. I'm not sure how that works, for the viewer. But I just wanted to say one more thing about it. I'm really interested in this idea of reciprocity, and I think photography has this really amazing way of showing us how we observe, and it's not just what we're seeing, it's also this other element that shows up in photography where something's a bit more than the picture you take. And I think this idea of how things respond is part of that. And I wanted to read, just the last thing I wanted to do was read where I found in writing, and it was mostly in spiritual writing, this idea of nature responding to our gaze. So this is actually from Eckhart Tolle, which most of you probably know. He authored a couple of books, including The Power of Now. And he says, you add something enormous to a flower by giving it your attention. When you unite your consciousness with the flower, through you, The flower recognizes itself. Nature thus becomes conscious of itself. Nature is waiting for you to recognize it. Find this out for yourself by being more attentive in nature. So yeah, that's what I've been looking at, and I think that's the way art. I'm following this path of how art can influence and create change, and I think it does a tremendous amount by adding to the way we understand things and the way we build knowledge, and yeah, about where we are now on the planet. So okay.
Thank you. Actually, I stopped your sharing just so when you were reading, so we could see you reading. But
Oh, thank you. That's clever. Put the link in the Vimeo.
Would anyone like? Yeah, the links are on the webpage, but also we'll put the links in the chat as well.
Someone asked, "Is there an irony?"
Judy, was that a hand going up? Yeah, you're muted at the moment. There we are.
Gwendolyn, that was lovely. I very much agree with your ideas about how art might influence and create change. That's fantastic. I was putting my hand up to move my hair, sorry. But it was great little presentation. And I love your idea of the artifact of the Anthropocene. I'm a great beachcomber myself. I very much related to that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd never found anything like those objects. Again, they were quite striking.
Mm. Lizzie first, and then Anne. Lizzie.
I didn't quite understand, Gwendolyn, when you called it plastic seaweed. I didn't understand, was it seaweed like plastic?
It's kind of a really subtle thing. It's hard to, yeah, it's like a hybrid. So the top of the seaweed was plastic, and then it was entangled. It was like an entanglement that followed the form of a seaweed quite accurately. So the top was a plastic frond, then the middle was an entanglement of fishing line and rocks and some seaweed, and then the holdfast was also some seaweed and some tangled fishing line. But the form was very definitely that of a clonia, which you could see how that plastic bag became shredded and formed by the waves, the force of the ocean.
It looked.
Thank you.
Anne, and then back to Judy.
It looked remarkably like a plant, that green plastic. And I was wondering, it was interesting seeing them on Zoom, because we're not seeing the white border of the paper they were printed on at all. They were just sort of floating, and I'm wondering how you present them when you show them, or have you not shown them in the flesh yet? Are they in a frame? Are they, what's the sort of presentation of the print?
Sure, I've printed them. I think it's 34 by, I can't remember, but they're quite big. And then I've hung them without frames, just tacked and hanging. Mm-hmm. And they've got a lot of white space around them because they were like specimens to me. Right. I saw them as specimens. So I try to photograph them like the scientific eye. Let's strip everything out of and just take that object as an object, playing with that. Yeah, and I've shown them in 3 different settings, but they were all conversations with science and artists through the Stellenbosch University. There's a center there for complexity, and so there were some interesting environments I showed them in, but not a gallery type.
Judy, did you have a question?
Yes, well, it was a comment really. I found on the beach, they're conglomerate, I can't say that word, conglomerates of plastic with rock that have formed where people have been burning plastic on the beach. And it's melded with other things like wood and shells and the rocks on the beach to form what seem to be rocks, but in fact, when you pick them up, they're too lightweight. It's all plastic, but they're mimicking the natural rock, and they're quite uncanny. And it made me think very much about these things that I found as well. Your found bits of rope and plastic. And the other thing is that when it's very much on the south coast of Devon, we've got the Atlantic waves coming in, and the waves churn things just like your bits of plastic have been churned there. And so you often get great tangles of seaweeds and bits of plastic, particularly fishing line and things like that. So yeah, it's all very close to my heart, things that I find regularly. Thank you.
I'd just like to pick up on one thing you were talking about, which is this idea of nature being conscious of being observed, or the kind of the classic notion that something that's being observed changes, that our observation, actually our attempt to measure through observation, changes the object being measured. I just wanted to see if you wanted to expand on that at all.
Yeah, I think photography is this medium that helps us, and maybe film, but I work with stills. It seems to be a medium that helps us humans understand that idea a little bit, outside of the more esoteric meaning of it. Because I teach youth photography in South Africa when I can go there, and it's a medium which helps them understand who they are by looking at themselves. So that to me is an entry into this work with listening and seeing that. I mean, these are little disconnected thoughts, but I think we're starting to understand that idea on a bigger level. Of course, I'm looking at it more from artistic, and I get fed to that idea through more spiritual stuff, like or New Age stuff that talks about consciousness in a way that I understand it. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting. I'm just realizing it is something that actually is like, we're all conscious, and I guess I'm realizing that nature is really conscious. Now, why didn't I realize that before? I don't know. But yeah, it's just in pieces for me. I haven't really formed a solid.
I think when you open yourself, when you observe in the way that you've been talking about, when you allow yourself to be quiet and you allow yourself to be able to open up, I think you do perhaps begin to see a consciousness in what you are seeing that you wouldn't otherwise have done. So in that sense, again, the observation has changed what you're seeing.
Yeah, and we're conscious of ourselves, so we know we exist. So why? And that's sort of a two-part thing. There's our consciousness and us, and me and my consciousness. So then, if we can separate it in ourselves, why? Can we see it in nature as a thing? Yeah.
Right. Anyone else? Yeah, Jane.
It reminds me of
Nelly.
when I was traveling in Tanzania a couple of years ago, and was told that acacia trees, which are very tasty to giraffes, when giraffes feed, hang on, just got to get this right, they feed downwind. because acacia trees, when they're eaten, i.e. attacked, give off this pheromone. Maybe you know that, I don't know.
No,
so
interesting.
Yeah, and also, and so what happens is that the other acacia trees pick up on all this danger and they turn bitter.
Oh wow! So their flavour actually changes. Wow.
Yes. Yeah. So the giraffes have to be very careful which way they eat.
Incredible.
Ellie.
Yes, a couple of things. Coincidentally, I suppose, if there is coincidence, I had honed in on exactly the same quote in the Eckhart Tolle book about the observation. And just now, Richard, when you also questioned observing, I think that thing of observing something in nature and making it aware so that there is a two-way thing is very close to what happens in quantum mechanics, where many scientists have been completely baffled by the observed and the observer. So my conclusion of that would be that, in fact, there is a consciousness, obviously both in us and in the natural object, and just gets us closer to the whole connection, which I think Eckhart Tolle would also agree with in that way, because he talks about that. So just fascinating that you said that, picked up on that, and really identify with what you said.
Yeah, I think this relationship about humans and nature is what we're all, like, that's on the table right now. And there's kind of, we're walking, well, I'm personally walking around that idea. And to understand, if you think as nature is in this reciprocal relationship with us, it changes everything. Like it is to the giraffes. And then I think you could extend that, maybe indigenous people even had an understanding of nature in that way.
What people?
Indigenous people, people that were, yeah. So it's an interesting idea of, in a way of thinking about who we are as humans on the planet, and reconnecting some of our more nature-based roles on a higher level also.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you.
Welcome, Lillian, who's just joined us.
Thank you.
Jane, I think you're up next.
Yep, I am. Okay, so I have to share my screen, do I?
Yeah, well, if you want us to see anything, yes, you need to share your screen.
Here we go then. Oh, don't want that though.
Be careful what you share.
Yes, quite.
Okay, good stuff.
Right. Okay, I've written out actually what I want, because I can sort of drift off, and I don't want to sort of do that. So I'm one of these people who are outraged by plastic in our oceans. It's quite an interesting threesome, actually. I think we're talking today, very connected. So I'm outraged by plastic in our oceans, and yet I still use it. For 20 years, I've had in my mind a project that involves a transparent material. Transparent because it links to my antipodes obsession. You can see through to the other side of the material, seeing what is on the other side of our world, wherever we are. But my antipodes work is another story. I first started painting and printing onto transparent film about 20 years ago during my BA. Aesthetically, I like the way you can see through it. When light shines onto the work, it casts wonderful images onto the background. I also like the way it is floating and ethereal, moving with the atmosphere. It feels free. I stopped the work because it was only plastic that I could use as a ground. Last, bought some olives from my Tesson and found the clear material used was compostable. Sorry. On researching it, I found the sole supplier of sheets of this plant-based material in the UK, and they have supplied me with it since. So I revisited my transparent film ideas and produced a body of work. Sorry, this is an older piece. Produced a body of work that was part of the end of year show at Newlyn School of Art mentoring course that I completed in November. Let me just show you a few of the smaller pieces that I produce. A bit of detail. And I'll carry on, show the exhibition in a moment. So I'm playing with this material. It looks just like plastic.
What is it made from?
It's a plant-based material. It's all plant-based, and they add a plant-type resin to create these, you know, they make these great sheets of it.
And does it last, or does it deteriorate over time? Do you know?
Yes, it will deteriorate over time.
Uh-huh.
I'll just show you these. Okay.
So how are you printing on
sorry?
these? Are you printing on these, or are you painting?
No. I am painting with oil paint, and I've also used an acrylic medium, and I've used, in this particular one on the right here, is ferrous powders. So I throw anything, all sorts of things on it, but I don't use acrylic paint apart from this medium. I've been researching how to present the work, lighting and hanging it, and have been speaking with a lighting engineer and metal welding company who can produce what I want. But at the moment it's cost prohibitive for me. I'm in discussion with the Ashburn Gallery, who show my work in Ashburton, with the idea of having a show there next spring. The owner knows of the couple who made the first film about the plastic field in the Pacific, which was called A Message in the West. And we hope the lady, Rebecca Hoskins.
Jane, can you just say that again? Because can you just give us the name of that again? Because your audio went a bit funny there.
Sorry. Yeah, the owner of the gallery, who I'm talking with at the moment about a show next spring, knows the filmers of the first film about the plastic field I call it plastic field, in the Pacific, and it was called A Message in the Waves. There are others, but this was the very first one. So we're hoping to talk to her and bring in links to Greenpeace and Surfers Against Sewage, etc. I do see my work sitting within a conservation environment. The material, of course, is biodegradable. Given the right conditions, it will eventually break up and return to the earth. I've got a piece here. It's really warped because I put it in my greenhouse to see what would happen to it. Let me just flick up. It's this one that I had outside for a long time. And what eventually happens is it breaks up.
Can everybody see Jane doing that? Can I just unshare you for a minute so that that we can see the plastic?
Yeah. So this was the piece that was outside my garden. It's been outside for about 6 months now, if not more than that. So eventually it crisps away, chips away, and that will in time go down to, well, a plant material. In other words, it will disintegrate. And if people wish to buy the work,
yeah, got you back now.
Yeah, if people wish to purchase any of my work, to be honest, they need and will know that eventually it will disintegrate, and that, to be honest, for me is a big part of the work anyway. So all of my work, whether I'm painting onto film or canvas, is about the destruction of our planet and people living upon it. But I can't keep working with grim images, so I subvert them and aim to make something beautiful, subliminally, with a darker message that some people pick up. I use the organic material to remind us to take more care of our planet. The colour, which is oil paint and metal ferrous powders, as celebration of its beauty and richness. The underlying narrative to my work is our planet is changing. We need to take care, but it is still beautiful. I just want to finish with a quote that I absolutely love. And it comes from Art is Therapy by Alain de Botton and John Armstrong. It's a book. And it is, the pleasure of pretty art draws on dissatisfaction. If we did not find life difficult, beauty would not have the appeal that it does. So that, to me, sums up the fact that over the years I have dealt in my art with some grim and difficult subjects as part of the Arts and Ecology MA I did. But it's sitting there underneath, isn't it, the whole time, how life and the world is difficult, but I kind of try to also produce some beautiful things with the underlying message that I've just described. If I could do anything before I die, I would really love to produce something as big as this. This idea was, this is a tiny maquette of 20 years ago when I produced a landscape. It was a panoramic landscape up and over. I would love to produce this, but as yet I haven't. And that's it for me. So thank you.
Thank you, Jane. I'm going to boot you off so that we can, that's great, you've done it yourself, so I can see everyone. And who would like to come in with a, yeah, Gwendolyn.
Sorry, I used the wrong reaction. Well, anyway, clapping.
Well, you said
I just wanted to ask you what that material was again.
It's the stuff that you get your olives in a nice deli. It's not, you know, it is a biodegradable, compostable, not plastic.
So what is it called and who makes it?
Well, I'd rather not say.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Yeah, to be truthful, because I've spent years getting to this point and I'm wanting to just see where it goes for me. But it would be called cornstarch.
Okay, I know.
Or,
right.
You know, it's a plant-based material, basically.
I think it's so interesting as artists when you're confronted with these world issues, and then to look at your own material and what you use. And I like how I like what you're doing with the material, and then also it brings up these questions that that you're bringing up too, that are contradictory almost. Do we use materials? What do we do? You know, if we're asking these bigger questions. Interesting.
Yes. Well, I think Gwendolyn, you also said something like, or I took it to be that the art has a huge power to tell stories, and I'm really interested in work, my own included, that can get to an audience that other mediums or other discussions can't. I was involved with the Exeter University Human Geography Department for some time, a few years ago. And they are all also very keen to work with artists, because academics talk to academics, and we read the papers and then we don't read the papers. But if one sees something more beautiful, it allows you to question, what makes people question more than perhaps they would otherwise, and their eyes glaze over. So it's a very powerful thing, us artists.
Anne.
I think the question of ambivalence and complicity as an artist is one I haven't figured out how to deal with yet. So, I mean, one example of that is my own interest in the sort of visual and formal qualities of industrial architecture. So when I was in the Thames photographing the infrastructure from the oil and gas industries, to me, it's really beautiful. At the same time, it's a visible intrusion in the landscape of a technology that's very destructive. And certainly in terms of the materials that we use, that I use, unlike you, Jane, I've used acrylics a lot, and it's a real issue. Like, how do you find materials that, and I haven't fully explored it, and this was why I use the word complicity, because I think we're all, deeply embedded in the fossil fuel technology in the way that we live, and changing that means giving up a lot. And I'm not there yet, but I really respect your decision to work with mostly sustainable materials. That acrylic medium is still a problem, I guess. And I'm not, like I said, I still use acrylics, but yeah, it's a problem. But I also think that the issue of ambivalence is a very interesting topic to explore as we look at our destruction of the planet.
What do you mean by ambivalence?
Well, I mean that we've all benefited from and are still using fossil fuels, technologies that have enabled the life that we live. We're getting on an airplane, we're driving in a car, whatever it is. We're all very involved with that, and to me, we're very ambivalent because we're benefiting, and we're unfortunately the changes that have to happen are happening very slowly. But I'm not pointing a finger at other people because I'm responsible for it myself. That's what I mean by ambivalence.
And I think we will always use new technology, new materials, and they will be harmful to the planet. I don't think there's any getting away from that. But for instance, on talking to the chap who owns this company, he is a big lobbyer of Parliament and on trying to get this type of material into mainstream use. And he was saying recently to me that the government is resisting pushing out this type of material because they have set themselves up supposedly to recycle our plastics as we use them now. They now, as we know, they don't go to China. What does happen to them? We actually don't know that. And to invest in a whole new way of reusing and recycling a new material is the cost of that they are balking against. So that's why this type of material isn't being used as much as it should be, because the government is still happy on claiming that they recycle all they do. Well, I don't believe that, and neither does he. What happens to our stuff? So we're never going to stop using plastics and oils, etc. But there are other ways of using other materials if we can actually bring in a way to recycle them and reuse them, and which is available but not funded.
Judith, I think you had a question, and then Martin, I'll come to you. Did you?
Sorry, me?
Yeah.
It sort of semi being talked about. I wondered why you didn't use acrylic paints, but you did use acrylic medium.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yes, I know it is the same thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm really enjoying using ferrous powders, metal powders. I wanted to bring in another, I do it on my canvases, for instance, and the only way I can get the ferrous powders to actually rust on a ground is to actually put it into water-based medium. So unfortunately, although I have experimented, that's what I've come up with, which is really annoying. But you're absolutely right, yes.
Martin.
Oh, hi.
Yes,
Thanks.
Richard, but you're really Martin.
Yes, thanks, Richard. What I'm want to try and say is not very well worked out, but it sort of connects with what was being said earlier on about the idea of the consciousness of nature and the consciousness of human beings and so on. And to rather throw a spanner in the works, I suspect that, you know, in saying we're trying to save the planet or save the world, we're actually saying we want to save ourselves. I mean, the world, as you know, Richard, I'm interested in geological history. The world is, you know, very content with itself before we came along. And I'm sure it will be quite content with itself after we've gone. Interestingly enough, I just by chance came across a description of what geology is on Wikipedia, and it suggests geology is the history of the world before human beings, which I thought was quite a nice sort of statement, really. So that was what I wanted to say, and I just wondered if anybody wants to react to that, I suppose. Thank you.
Well, I had I was listening to I can't remember exactly where he was coming from, but we were talking about intelligence, and along those same lines, Martin, he basically said, you know, we don't understand why humans think they're so clever when, you know, the rest of the planet basically managed to get along for millions of years, and we came along sort of 200,000 years ago and have managed to completely trash it in that really short period of time. Where is the intelligence in that? But my response to what you're saying is, of course, because humans are not by nature altruistic, sadly, and so as we are trying to save the planet, we're trying to save ourselves. You're absolutely right. There's far less interest in genuinely saving the planet than there is in saving our precious little place on it.
Yes, I think there was also somebody who was talking about consciousness as well, and listening and observing. And just to put in a word for the activities that I find interesting, it might be useful to go. I was at Bradley Salterton yesterday, walking along underneath the cliffs, and looking at a section that is referred to as the Bradley Salterton pebble beds. And this is a geological feature that dates back to the Triassic, around about 230 million years ago, but is nevertheless forming this magnificent stretch of coastline. And if you go out and start looking at these things, rocks and stones and things like that, which for the majority tend to be regarded as inanimate objects, really, which I suppose in a sense they are, but they nevertheless contain the bones of former life. And I just think it's oddly reassuring to observe these things, because it puts you in perspective with your environment.
Yeah. totally echo that.
I have a reaction to that. So I think like humans are trying to figure out who they are in so many ways, and we've used science to really capture knowledge and tell us we know this and we know that, and at the same time use science to really ruin the place where we inhabit, which is what's on the table. But this is also a very interesting turning point, because we're in such a crisis of whether it's trying to keep our planet safe for us, or however you frame it. We're actually at a moment of crisis where we're looking at ourselves differently. And I think that's, whether we're trying to save ourselves or the planet, that moment is quite important for understanding who we are as human beings in a bigger sense.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Goodness, we've strayed into some quite deep territory today. Would anyone like to, thank you, Jane.
My pleasure, thank you.
Would anyone like to offer anything else, or say anything else? Or yes, Peony, you are muted at the moment.
I was just going to ask Richard Martin, was it you who was asking about the showing geological structures through time the other week, and if there were any artworks? So it wasn't you.
I do talk about that from time to time. But,
Oh, it wasn't you who asked everybody if they knew any artworks then?
Could have been.
I don't know, to be honest with you. I can't remember.
All it was there was somebody who'd asked.
My sense of time's not very long, you know.
And I didn't know. And if it was you, there was this one at at Thetford Forest Park.
Right.
Is an artwork showing the geology through the ages. And so maybe it wasn't you, because somebody was specifically asking. And if it was you, I was going to give you the details, but I wasn't sure if it was you, so don't worry.
It looks interesting anyway, so why don't you...
I'll tap them in anyway.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I had a completely practical question.
Yes.
I really like Jane's work, but I was wondering, she was talking about it disintegrating. Do you actually record that disintegrating process? I mean, is it a process that under certain conditions can be relatively fast, or is it a 20-year process?
Well, because I haven't recorded it, except that I keep looking at this thing that is warping and being in the heat. But that's an interesting question. It is sort of something that I've done in the past, and I should. In answer to your question about its life, in the optimum conditions in which it will disintegrate faster is warm, humid conditions. Okay. So like in the middle of a really good compost bin. Okay. If it's in say a normal structure, not facing the south-facing window because it would get too hot, then no one knows at the moment how long it will last, because the product is actually quite new.
Okay.
So it's only been used, I'm guessing 4 years maybe. It's coming much more prominent now. So the testing process is only been as long as it's been on this, been constructed.
Yes.
So I don't have an answer to that.
I just love to see it like a really beautiful disintegration, not just a lab-based one, but actually to see something disintegrate that is so stunning. Not that I want it destroyed, but...
Yes, I agree. And what I've found through this piece is that it chips, so it breaks off, and you see very sharp edges to it. So that's how it disintegrates. It's very warped because I had it in my greenhouse laying over some pots which were almost this shape. and I've used blow torches and all sorts of things to play with it. I mean, if you, for instance, wash a pot inadvertently, you don't realise it's this stuff that you've got your olives in, and you put it in the dishwasher or you wash it in hot water, it will crumple.
Yes, if it's that stuff that, yes, you get the fruit in the supermarket, and then you wash it so that you could put it in the recycling, you think, oh.
The supermarkets, I don't think, no, I think they're still using plastics.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm from Holland, we have eco-plastic.
Oh, that's the stuff then, I beg your pardon. Yes, exactly, we don't yet, and we should have.
Yeah.
But yes, and then I guess there's this issue of stamped very subtly in this packaging is do not put in recycling. Well, we don't actually see that. So where do you put it?
Here we put it in our bins, but we burn our rubbish, which is scary.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Sorry, I'm always, as an artist, fascinated by the actual material as well, which is why I had to ask.
Yes. No, thank you. Yes, me too. Yeah.
Anyone else? No. Okay. Well, thank you. It's been a really fascinating session. As always, I will put up this on the video. Oh, sorry, I'll put the video of today up on the website. I've also been saving the chat as we went along, so that will be up on the web page as well. Thanks for everyone for coming, especially first timers. It's been great to see you, and we will meet again next month. I have no doubt it will be in the same format. And I think actually even once the world gets back to normal, whenever that may be, we'll continue to do some of these chats this way, because as we said at the beginning, it provides an opportunity for people to get involved who couldn't otherwise. So we'll definitely continue to do it this way. I just want...
That's really good news. Good news for those that are far away. And I can see that there's some others from far away beginning to come in as well now. So
yes,
that's even better.
Yes, so we'll definitely continue it. Also just want to draw your attention to the Borrowed Time project, which was supposed to have happened this year in November and is instead happening next November. But we have re-announced the call for participation in that. So we don't have a clue what form it will take, but what we are doing is essentially our usual kind of call for ideas, and we will find ways of, I think we're hoping to do, rather than a specific 3-day event, we'll do something throughout next year. So do have a look on the website for that. The call is open for lazy people until December, so there's plenty of time to think about it, but it'd be great to have you involved. That's all from me. I think we, as I say, we'll gather next time, when I think most of the session we'll be working with Hugh Nankerville, who's a composer based in the Torquay, who's been doing some, always does interesting work, and has been doing some particularly fascinating work with both pre-verbal, as in very young children, and post-verbal, as in people with dementia who are no longer able to speak, and music. I don't know if he's going to be talking about that specifically, but it's really interesting work. And he's a really interesting chap, and I hope he'll be getting us to do something next time. Anyway, bye for now. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.